Today, you'll read and listen to a news article with me to improve your English fluency fast. Learning English with the news is the best way to improve all areas of your English at the same time. You'll learn advanced vocabulary, understand advanced grammar, and improve your pronunciation. And this will help you feel confident speaking English in public. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Our headline, your coffee habit could be linked to healthier aging, study finds. So of course, we're talking about coffee. So your coffee habit represents your habit or routine of how frequently you drink coffee. So it could include drinking a lot of coffee, or even not drinking coffee at all is still your coffee habit. Now, could be linked to. Here, notice we have to be linked to. So we have one thing, your coffee habit, and then to be linked to something else, healthier aging. It means these two things, your coffee habit and healthy aging, are connected or related in some way. Now, could is a modal of probability or possibility. So this means there is a possibility, but it's not guaranteed. And healthier aging, the word aging means getting older, but we don't use this with babies or toddlers or kids. We really use this to refer to adults getting older. So you could say, Jennifer, you're aging so well, which means although I'm getting older, I still look young. So you could use that as a compliment to someone. She's aging well. And then not so positively, she isn't aging well, or she's aging poorly, to use a negative adverb. In the headline, aging is a noun. It's a something. But in the examples I gave, I'm using the verb to age conjugated in the present continuous because it's taking place now. So Jennifer, you're aging so well. I'm in the process of doing this. That's why it's in the present continuous. So the verb is to age. The structure to be linked to is very commonly used, especially in more formal English. So here's an example. Having a consistent study habit, so using a habit, in this case, a study habit. So this is item one or thing one, and then to be conjugated with our gerund expression, third person singular. This is always in the ed form, linked. Notice that pronunciation of the T, linked. So this ED forms a T sound, linked to, but then when I pronounce this to, you don't really hear that first T because I have the T here, linked to, and then something else, better results. This is a noun. If you wanted to use a verb, it would be the gerund because to is part of the expression, so it's a preposition. So what could we add for a verb in the gerund? Having a consistent study habit is linked to getting better results, more simply, achieving, attaining. You can use something more formal as well, but it would be in the ing. But you can also use a noun and just say better results. So this is optional. And hopefully you think that watching my videos, studying with me, learning with me is linked to better results with your English fluency. So if you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And also, don't worry about taking these notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's continue with the article. Want to reach older age with a sharp mind and healthy body? What do you notice about this question? Maybe the beginning part, want to reach older age. This is something that native speakers commonly do, specifically in more informal context. But as you can see, this is a more formal context and they're doing it. They're dropping the auxiliary verb, which is there for grammar, but not for understanding for a native speaker. So we know this is a question form, even with
without the auxiliary verb. So what would be the auxiliary verb? Well, and you would have to add the subject as well. Do you want to reach an older age? Do you want to reach an older age? So I might say to you, want to have dinner tonight? Want to have dinner tonight? Instead of, do you want to have dinner tonight? That's very common if I send a quick text message or even in spoken English as well. Just remember that as this is informal English, it's acceptable to use with your friends and casual situations, but in a more professional situation, it may not be appropriate. It depends on many things. So to be safe, you can always include the auxiliary and the subject if you are not sure and form the full question. Do you want to reach older age with a sharp mind? So here, sharp is the adjective and it's used positively. If you have a sharp mind, it means you're able to think quickly, form your thoughts clearly, and it's another way of saying you still have all your mental abilities, even though you're older, and generally they tend to decline. So it's saying you're still maintaining your mental abilities as you age. This is commonly used as a compliment to someone of any age, and you can say, wow, you're sharp. So if I ask you a mental math question, what's 23 times 12, and you're able to answer it instantly or very quickly, be like, wow, you're sharp. Or if someone asks a question in a meeting and you are able to answer it very quickly and it's a complicated question, someone might say, wow, you're sharp. So it's a compliment that you can use to describe someone. So here, in both cases, it's an adjective. In this case, it's being used with aging, as you age. So a sharp mind and healthy body. Part of the answer may be, so again, our modal of possibility. Remember, with modals, you always use the base verb, which is why you see be. May be in your coffee cup. Oh, the secret is in your coffee cup. That's clever. So you can say, that's sharp if someone said this very quickly as an idea, in your coffee cup, according to new research. So notice here, according to, this preposition is required with to, and you can use it with someone, according to Dr. Sharma, or something like this new research is a something. Women who drank 1 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee per day in their 50s were more likely to reach older age free from major chronic diseases. Okay, let's review this part. Notice women, of course, is the irregular plural, 1 woman, 2 women. So notice the pronunciation is similar, but the vowel is different. So although the spelling is the same at the beginning, that's actually where the sound difference is the most pronounced. So woman, woman, but here in the plural is we, So it's that unstressed we, women, women. Women who drank 1 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee. So notice here, cups has the plural, but coffee does not. So 1 to 3, because this is plural, 3 cups of caffeinated coffee. Caffeinated, of course, it's the adjective that describes the coffee. It's coffee with caffeine, which is one of the reasons people love coffee, because of the caffeine. So caffeinated coffee. The opposite is decaffeinated. Notice that strong D pronunciation, decaffeinated. But native speakers generally shorten this to simply decaf, decaf. So if you go into a restaurant, you can say, I'll have decaf, and they know you want decaffeinated coffee. You don't even have to specify coffee. It's assumed. I'll have decaf. So maybe this is a little vague. You might say, I'll have a small decaf. Now it's more specific because they know you want what size you want. So I'll have a small decaf. You don't have to say coffee. They know what you mean. Now, if someone offers you a coffee, if you're at a friend's house or even in a workplace setting in a meeting and they say, would you like a coffee? And you can say, oh, do you have decaf? Do you have decaf? Because the standard coffee is caffeinated. So you might have to clarify, do you have decaf? Decaf. So this is that long E, decaf. Women who drink 1 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee per day, so this per means every day, per day, in their 50s. So this describes their age. So women in their 50s. So from 50 to 59 years old is in their 50s, in their 50s. Were, because we're talking about women, that's why we need were, plural, more likely to reach older age free from major chronic diseases. If you're free from something, then it means you do not have it.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
Let's review this. These women who drink 1 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee per day in their 50s were more likely to reach older age free from major chronic diseases, now we'll continue, and with good cognitive, physical, and mental health. So these represent the major categories of health, said lead study author Dr. Sarah Madavi. The women were surveyed in middle age and followed for 30 years to understand the rates of death and disease. So in middle age, I don't know if there is a precise term. If you assume that the average life expectancy is 100, which is quite high. Middle age would be 50. So although technically it's probably younger, most people consider in North America, at least people in their 50s to be around middle age. So in middle age, notice that preposition, in middle age. So the women were surveyed in their 50s could be a replacement to in middle age. And remember, if you add that S, it means the entire decade from 50 to 59. But the study could also be more precise and define what they mean by middle age. In middle age and followed for 30 years to understand the rates of death and disease. So their rates of means how likely were these women? Out of the women, how many had diseases? So that would be the rate of disease. And then they would calculate it as a percentage to determine it. In studies, it's very common to talk about likelihood. Likelihood is the noun, but written in sentence form, you would say how likely someone is, and then whatever it is. How likely my students are to become fluent by learning English with the news, for example. In this case, if I were to replace what I highlighted, I would say how likely they were, the women were, to die or develop disease, if I try to replicate this as closely as I can. Let's keep going. The effects were found in caffeinated coffee in particular. So in particular, they're emphasizing caffeinated coffee. So they want to make this sound like this is more important than other factors. So you could also use the word especially in caffeinated coffee. In particular, generally comes before or after the clause it's modifying, but especially I would put it after the main verb. The effects were found especially in caffeinated coffee, according to the research. And we already talked about this preposition, according to. And notice effect, This is the noun form. So you can have a singular or plural. The effects, the effects. Let's continue. The same link. Notice here we have link, which is a noun. You can think of it as the same connection, the same relationship, because before we saw it as to be linked. So A is linked to B. Coffee is linked to decreased disease. For example, studying is linked to better results. So the link is seeing it as a noun form. The same link between coffee and aging well. The same link was not found for tea or decaffeinated coffee or decaf if you're in the real world talking to native speakers, or decaffeinated coffee. So they're saying there was no connection between tea and aging or decaffeinated coffee and aging in the sense of how likely they were to die or develop disease. And drinking more cola, so cola is short for Coca-Cola, Coke, Pepsi, those style of products, and drinking more cola or other caffeinated sodas such as 7-Up, Orange Crush, Mountain Dew, whatever the other non-cola sodas are that are caffeinated, so contain caffeine, was tied to a lower chance of healthy aging. Okay. So tied to, you could replace tied with linked to. So tie, if my arms are tied, they're connected. So it's the same meaning. Linked, tied, connected. Linked is the standard term in more formal writing. Tied is a little more casual, a little more everyday. Was tied to a lower chance of healthy aging. So this is negative. Healthy sounds positive, right? But a lower chance means that your chance of aging in a healthy way is lower. So this is negative. So drinking more soda was tied to, connected to a decline in healthy aging. And remember, it's to be tied or linked, and you need that preposition to. So here it's our verb to be conjugated in the past simple. The study is observational. So here, this meaning, so they're going to define what an observational study is because it's not common knowledge. The study is observational, meaning it is limited in its ability to examine direct cause and effect. So in studies, they often talk about cause, what caused something, the reason for something, and effect. So the noun form, cause and effect. The new research can only show that a behavior and an outcome are more likely to occur together. So this defines what an observational study is. Now, in the context of this article, what's the behavior that they're talking about? Well, think of the routine, the habit. Behaviors are things we do. So in this case, it was the women who drank 1 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee. That's the behavior. Just like for you, it might be having a consistent study routine. That's the behavior. So all behavior, all because it's any, so it's general. The examples I gave were specific, which is why I used the article the. All behavior, such as drinking 1 to 3 cups of coffee per day, and an outcome. So an outcome, think result. What happens because of the behavior. In this case, it's the lower, how the rates of death and disease, and they suggested they were lower. So healthier aging, that's the outcome. And the outcome for your consistent study routine, the behavior, the outcome is better results, more confidence, faster fluency. Hopefully that's the outcome. So this part is important because they're basically saying that women who drank 1 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee, there were outcomes such as better aging, better mental, cognitive, physical abilities, but they only occurred together. We can't say that one caused the other. So it's an important point, especially in the research world, or if you're trying to understand the impact of this study. Researchers did take that into account. So notice here, did take. Do you understand why this is written this way grammatically? Because we have did, which is used in the past simple for negatives and questions. But this isn't a negative and it's not a question. So this is the emphatic past simple. The regular past simple, of course, would be researchers took that into account because the expression is to take something, in this case, the fact that the study was observational, to take something into account, which means to consider it. To consider it. So this would be the standard past simple. Did take is the emphatic past simple, which means they're simply emphasizing this point. So it sounds a little bit stronger than simply saying researchers took that into account. Researchers did take that into account. They want to emphasize this. So let's look at an example using to take into account, which means to consider, and the emphatic past simple. Maybe your boss or colleague is upset with you because you provided an estimate for the cost of something, but the estimate wasn't accurate. It was too low and you paid more for the service or the item. So your boss says you should have taken the product cost into account. You should have considered the product cost. So here, to take something, the product cost, into account. Now, this is written in you should have taken. You should have taken. So this is just your third form of the verb take. Now, you can use the emphatic past simple because this is written, this dialogue takes place in the past. So you would use the past simple, but you can use the emphatic past simple to clarify a belief. Your boss believes you didn't take the product cost into account, a belief or an assumption. So you can use this to clarify and respond back to your boss and say, we did take it into account. And because it's the emphatic, you might emphasize this word more than the others. We did take it into account. And this it represents the something, the product cost. So we did consider the product cost. So you have did and then the base verb in the emphatic past simple. It's a very useful sentence structure to understand. Let's review this again. Researchers did take that into account and adjusted for other factors. So adjusted, they changed or modified, adjusted for other factors that could link, connect. This is the verb form because we have modal of possibility and then base verb that could link coffee drinking. So this is, remember, item one, thing one, and item two, thing two, and you connect them together. So item one is coffee drinking, and item two is healthy aging. So that could connect these two together. So they adjusted for other factors. So they, in this case, actually adjusted for something. Excuse me, before when I explained adjusted, I didn't see this for. If you adjust something, it means you make changes or modifications. For example, we need to adjust the budget. We need to change or modify the budget. But when you adjust for something, there's a very different meaning. If you adjust for in the context of this study, it means you account for. Now, to be honest, in a more everyday use, just the the verb adjusted would be way more commonly used in my vocabulary and in anyone's vocabulary. A researcher would definitely use adjust for, which means more account for. So almost the similar meaning as consider. So let me explain the meaning of this simply. Researchers did take that into account and adjusted for other factors that could link coffee drinking and healthy aging. So these are the other factors that they adjusted for. So they looked at lifestyle, demographics, and other dietary differences. So how could you adjust for lifestyle? Well, if one of the women exercise every day and another woman doesn't exercise, they need to adjust or modify or change the results based on that, because the fact that one exercises and one doesn't could impact the results. But again, knowing this isn't that important in your everyday vocabulary, but adjust is definitely helpful. But it is still possible there is another variable at play. So if something is at play, it means another variable could still influence the study, could still be the reason why there was a link, a connection between drinking coffee, caffeinated coffee, and aging well, healthy aging. So there could be some other factor that's affecting that. So that's at play, in existence, still the reason why. This expression at play is very common and is often used in the sports world, because in the sports world, it's all about results and there are many things affecting results. So you could say, we thought his poor performance was because of his arm injury, but there are other factors at play. So maybe it's his sleep, his level of stress, his motivation, his family situation, his diet. So those could be the factors. And then at play means influencing his results, affecting his results. Variables, factors, those are two common words to come before at play, something at play. You could also just say things more commonly, but there are other things at play, other issues at play. So that is a common expression that you'll see. Let's continue. But the link, you've seen this a lot now. Repetition is so important for memorization. So the link, of course, this is a noun. Nouns are easy to identify when they have articles. So the connection, the relationship, the article the is here because it's a specific one. But the link between coffee and healthy aging, remember we need two things and then we need to connect them together or tie them. We saw that, to be tied to as well. Connect, link, tie them together. But the link between coffee and healthy aging isn't surprising. It is consistent with prior research. So prior means previous. Research previously done, research already completed. It is consistent with prior research. This suggests that there was a previous study and it showed the same link or connection as this study. Moderate coffee drinking has previously been linked. So this previously is because they used prior. Has previously been linked. So here we still have to be linked. We just have it in the present perfect. Has been linked. So to be has been linked to lower risks of chronic diseases. And then they're giving you examples of chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Let's look at this word moderate. Moderate is right in the middle. So it modifies coffee drinking. So it means not too much and not too little. I don't know what moderate coffee drinking is, to be honest, because I don't know what the average amount of coffee drunk is. Do you? What would be moderate for you? In the middle, not too little, not too much. So if it were on the lower end, you could say light coffee drinking. So that would be drinking a small amount of coffee. Light coffee drinking, moderate coffee drinking, and then you could have the higher end, heavy coffee drinking. You could say heavy coffee drinking. And you could replace coffee drinking for other things: light exercise, moderate exercise, heavy exercise, for example. Even with workload, the amount of work you have, we use the term workload. You can say, oh, this week I have a light workload. Next week I have a moderate workload. Last week I had a heavy workload. So if you had to guess the number of cups of coffee that represent moderate coffee drinking, what number would you choose? Put it in the comments. I'm curious because I honestly do not know. So put it in the comments. What number represents moderate coffee drinking? And what about you? Would you describe your coffee drinking as light, moderate, or heavy? Mine is definitely light. I drink 1 cup per day. Okay, now our final paragraph. Does this mean you should take up a coffee habit if you don't have one already? Okay, so here, a coffee habit, we already talked about this, but your routine or your behavior when it comes to drinking coffee. But it says if you don't have one already. So it suggests if you currently do not drink coffee, then you do not have a coffee habit. So should you take up a coffee habit? If you take up something such as a habit, it means you start it, you do it, you begin it as your routine. So if I take up jogging, I don't just jog once, I do it as a regular part of my routine. So maybe you want to take up piano or take up guitar or take up gardening, or in this case, take up a coffee habit. And notice here, you can use a noun such as guitar. This is a noun. But if you use the verb, you're going to use the gerund verb. You're going to see it as an in-progress action. So take up jogging, take up gardening, take up drinking coffee. But a coffee habit, this is a noun because we have a habit. What type of habit? A coffee habit. So that's a noun. So you can use a noun or a gerund. Does this mean you should take up a coffee habit if you don't have one already? Not necessarily. So not necessarily means maybe yes, maybe no. It's unclear, uncertain. Now here's the reason why. Coffee may support longevity. This is the concept of living longer. The study of living longer is referred to as longevity. Notice the pronunciation, longevity. So coffee may support living longer, longevity. Coffee may support longevity, but it's not a universal prescription. So if it were a universal prescription, it means every single person, regardless of age, demographics, lifestyle, health, everyone should do it. But they're saying it's not a universal prescription. So maybe there are certain people that shouldn't drink coffee for some reason. A simple way of saying this would be, but it's not for everyone. Some people may benefit. Some people may actually see negative effects, so it's not for everyone. And that's the end of the article. So I'll read the article again from start to finish, and you can focus on my pronunciation. Your coffee habit could be linked to healthier aging, study finds. Want to reach older age with a sharp mind and healthy body? Part of the answer may be in your coffee cup, according to new research. Women who drank 1 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee per day in their 50s were more likely to reach older age free from major chronic diseases and with good cognitive, physical, and mental health, said lead study author Dr. Sarah Madavi. The women were surveyed in middle age and followed for 30 years to understand the rates of death and disease. The effects were found in caffeinated coffee in particular, according to the research. The same link was not found for tea or decaffeinated coffee, and drinking more cola or other caffeinated sodas was tied to a lower chance of healthy aging. The study is observational, meaning it is limited in its ability to examine direct cause and effect. The new research can only show that a behavior and an outcome are more likely to occur together. Researchers did take that into account and adjusted for other factors that could link coffee drinking and healthy aging, such as lifestyle, demographics, and other dietary differences. But it is still possible there is another variable at play, Madavi said. But the link between coffee and healthy aging isn't surprising. It is consistent with prior research. Moderate coffee drinking has previously been linked to lower risks of chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Does this mean you should take up a coffee habit if you don't have one already? Not necessarily. Coffee may support longevity, but it's not a universal prescription.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.